This is the Tan Talk Radio Network.
Welcome to Moments of Clarity with Tiffany Werner, licensed mental health counselor in the state of Florida. Moments of Clarity's mission is to educate and end the stigma on mental health through the inspirational stories of our exceptional guests. You can join in the show by calling Tiffany toll-free at 866-826-1340 or on Facebook and Twitter at MOC with Tiffany. Now, here's Tiffany Werner.
Hi, thanks for listening. This is Moments of Clarity. My name's Tiffany Werner. I am a licensed mental health counselor, and I'm your host. And Happy New Year, everyone. And hi, Ed. How was your New Year?
It was very good, but Shazam, it's already Thursday.
I know. New Year's was yesterday, but it's the first time I get to be on the air after New Year's to wish everyone a Happy New Year. 2020 is going to be a wonderful decade, hopefully, for most of us. I'm optimistic. But anyway, so I'm excited to have my guest in studio today, and we're going to be talking about something that a lot of people are probably asking or making New Year's resolutions about quitting with addiction and recovery. And my guest today is a nationally certified intervention professional and an outreach coordinator for all in behavioral health. He's a graduate from RRHS who had a promising baseball career and turned to a hopeless drug addict. And he shares his story in hopes of healing that one person to change their life for the better. And from the day that he got sober, he's dedicated his life to helping those achieve freedom from their addictions. He's been featured on ABC Action News and shared his story throughout the state of Florida. And then you can add Moments of Clarity to that, too. And I want to welcome to Moments of Clarity, Steven Sundquist.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
It's really a lot. It takes a lot of courage to tell your story and your journey and share and be vulnerable and transparent like this. So I really appreciate it. Some of the best help to others are through our experiences.
Absolutely. And from the day I got sober this time around, and this isn't my first rodeo, obviously, this time around I became an open book. And I feel like not only does that help me, but it helps other people be able to relate through that, establishing the connection. Yeah,
absolutely. And it helps you heal, too. The more real we are with ourselves, actually, the more real the journey is. And that's why people start sharing in rooms like AA or NA or wherever, because telling the story makes it more valid and true.
Yeah, and that's where I found my recovery, through the rooms of AA. I got plugged in with a good group of people, a good network, a good sponsor, and I think that's important. And that's what helped me in my journey.
Mm-hmm. So let's talk about your journey and how it all began. You were in baseball.
Yep. So growing up, I was an athlete. That's where I found my first connection in life, on the sports field. Before that, though, I was the kid that never really felt satisfied, from an early age. I was always comparing myself down from the clothes I wore, the toys I had, or the cars my parents drove. I was the kid that was always looking for attention, trying to make someone laugh because I thought that's how they would like you. So growing up, I struggled with an identity crisis. I was known as the athlete, but I didn't truly know who I was because I never felt comfortable in my own skin. So I realized that I was good at baseball, and that was going to be my future. That was my vision for my future. I was going to play baseball at the next level. The age of 15 years old, I was at a party one night, and some friends had a bottle, and they were drinking. I was like, yeah, let's drink. I know what I'm doing. I had no idea what I was doing, but I was just trying to fit in, and I was seeking attention from others. So I ended up taking 7 shots of Everclear 151 the first time I drank. I blacked out within 30 minutes.
Right.
And I couldn't tell you a single thing about that night or what happened, only the stories that people told me the next day. And those stories were, you were the life of the party, you were hilarious, like, we liked that version of you. And from that moment on, I'm like, wow, okay, alcohol makes me believe that it can allow me to truly be myself. It gives me the liquid courage, so to speak. So I repeated it all over the next night. And completely disregarding how sick I had been the night before, I threw up all over myself. I urinated in my pants, stupid stuff, but that's what happened. So from an early age...
That makes you the life of the party.
Right, yeah. From an early age, I realized that I don't know my limit. I do everything to... take away that void from within my soul. From an early age, I feel like I had this hole in my soul, and I was filling it with external things that made me feel good. So that continued to happen on the weekends throughout high school into some weekdays during school. And again, I keep excelling at sports and baseball, and a freak accident happens my junior year of high school. I had an injury commonly known as Tommy John to my pitching elbow. I was a pitcher. I also played shortstop. And
doesn't that require surgery?
It does, yeah. So it's a relocation of the ulnar tendon, the nerve in your elbow. So,
and correct me if I'm wrong, but if you have the surgery on it, you can't play anymore.
No,
right?
So I was out for 6 months.
Right.
And through that 6 months, I was prescribed pain pills because that's what they gave me. I thought I needed them. So I fell in love with the feeling of pain pills instantly. So all the alcohol, the marijuana use completely was on the back burner. It was like, all right, this is my new love. This makes me feel good. This makes me be the best version of myself. So at that moment, I realized that I can take these pills in high school and nobody's going to know because I'm not smelling like weed. I'm not smelling like alcohol. And I could be high all day long. Mm-hmm. So that continued into my senior year of high school. And, I stopped associating with the friends that I had before. My friends group started to change, and I became, pretty much a lonely kid. I would go to school, I would go to baseball, I'd go home, and I would hang out with my pills. That was my life. So I took these pills before every single baseball game my senior year of high school, and the crazy thing is I ended up setting a batting average record at my high school that year, at River Ridge High School. And that also led me to believe that these pills make me the best version of myself as well, because they're giving me my best potential through this. So I was living a lie. I lost my identity at that point. My grade point average had dropped from a 3.2 to like a 2.1. I had like 56 unexcused absences because these drugs were taking a hold of my life. And it was just such an innocent decision taking that first pill at 16 years old. And at 16 years old, I never thought that I would turn into a heroin addict, but it happened. And that's what happens for a lot of people that become opiate abusers at a young age.
Not only that, but just pain pills, thinking that they're doing the right thing, and then being scared to feel that pain ever again.
Absolutely.
And then it's hard to get off of them, even just prescribed, because it gets in your bones, you get the sickness and the withdrawal and all that.
Yeah, and I didn't realize I had a problem until I was out of high school, because the first time I really truly experienced a withdrawal, I was on my way home from a wedding in Atlanta. I went there with my family, and I think I made it home from Atlanta in like 6.5 hours. I was doing like 110 the whole way, and it's crazy because the closer I got back to home, the less sick I felt, because I knew I was going to get that pill, and the second I did it, I felt completely normal, and that's when I knew I had a problem. But I was never able to truly be vulnerable with other people and talk about how I needed help. I was too prideful. Mm-hmm. So that's what I try to educate people on today that are struggling. And for anybody out there listening, like, it's okay not to be okay. I'm here as a voice for the voiceless to share my experience with you guys and be there for other people. And I think that's what's allowed me to create my purpose, is having gone through that and being the light for other people today.
Mm-hmm. Well said. And it's I can tell it's not easy to come to that realization and be able to be an open book, especially like with pride on your shoulder and things like that.
Right, for sure.
And wondering who's going to hear about it, or coming clean and telling the truth about years of maybe hiding stuff or lying. Right,
and I think addiction starts from some type of trauma or some type of mental illness, like it did with me, with some of the traumatic things that happened at an early age, or the depression, all that stuff. So whenever I got to the point where it was time for me to share my story, it happened without me even trying. So
Isn't that good?
Yeah. So it was a divine intervention from God, like I like to say. And, I ended up overdosing twice within a 24-hour period. And I got revived by the same paramedic crew on that day. And I went out and reached out to the firefighters who saved my life. And they put something on Facebook, and they were like, they told this whole big story about me. And I was very hesitant to let that out, because that was the one thing that was preventing me from truly just being myself no matter where I go, and letting people know who I am and what my past is. Because I was so fearful of that my whole life. I didn't want people to know who I truly was or what I had gone through, which is stupid, but so the firefighters released this story on, the chief of fire released the story on a page on Facebook, and a bunch of news stations got a hold of it, and they were contacting me. And they're like, we want to do an interview on you. I'm like, all right, this is my moment of clarity. And I got to a point where I was like, all right, I have to do this, not only to free myself, but to help other people. And from that day forward, the rest is history, and I'm available to anybody to help them, because if I can help one person, my job's done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, like a lot of people say that we just we want to at least reach at least one person,
right,
and then it's worth it all.
Right.
But it sounds like you're reaching a lot more people than just one.
Yeah, I like to speak in the high schools. The youth is where my heart is, because I realized what I went through at an early age in high school. That was a very developmental stage of my life, to where I could have went another way if I would have had those meaningful conversations with my peers. And that's what I try to encourage these kids in high school to do, because I never had that. It was never like, hey, Steve, I'm worried about what you're doing, or how can I help you, or all these friends I had in my life, they weren't adding to it. So I like to use this phrase as, me being the athlete. I have my starting lineup behind me today in life. As the pitcher on the baseball field, I trusted my shortstop, my first baseman to make the play just as much as I did the center fielder, whatever. So I have these people in my life who are in my starting lineup that I can rely on, that I can call for advice, people that are going to call me out, people that are going to support me, people that are going to bring value to my life. So that's my metaphor with that. But whenever I speak to the kids in high school, I do exercises like, I'll have them close all their eyes. Say, close your eyes. I say, I want you to raise your hand if you've ever felt like you've been bullied before. And almost every single kid raises their hand. And then I tell them to open their eyes. In that moment right there, they're experiencing vulnerability with other people and their peers and their classmates, to know, okay, I'm not in this alone. Because that's the most important part. Growing up, I thought I was alone through everything I went through, not even realizing half of the people that I was associating with had either at least been through the same thing or knew somebody that has. So that's one of my passions with speaking to the youth and sharing my story. We went to maybe like 5 or 6 schools during Red Ribbon Week, spoke to probably 5,000 students, and that's like the most powerful thing I've been able to experience, with having the kids literally just grab their attention from the beginning with like, hey, listen, like we were where you were. It's amazing. Right.
And I mean, and hitting them at an early age will help diminish any future stuff. I mean,
for sure.
In my office, I get a ton of, people in their 30s and 40s wanting help now because they didn't get help or nobody intervened when the time was right.
Right. Yeah, and I think it's important to never really give up. I didn't get it until I was 26 years old, and I had been trying since I was 18. I helped like a 73-year-old woman recently, and I told her the same thing. I say, listen, as long as you're breathing, it's never too late to start over. Mm-hmm. The reality of it is people are dying every day, no matter what age they are, and if you're not giving it a shot, what's the point? Yeah,
it's definitely an epidemic, globally, And now's the time, for our listeners, to follow your resolutions, make the changes that, even if you don't believe in New Year's resolutions, but everyone's asking about it, and the first thing that comes to your mind is maybe I should cut back on drinking or exercise more or whatever, then you're telling yourself that you understand that maybe something needs to change. And I don't know why we don't listen to ourselves more, but we just don't.
We're our own worst critic, right?
Instead of our own best friends.
My mind's going to keep me from doing all these things, and I think that's important. What you just talked about is like setting goals. I'm always trying to set goals for myself, whether they're short term or long term, and I think it helps keep me focused and in the moment. Because if it's left up to me, I'll get sidetracked and get way too ahead of myself.
We just have to make it to where we don't want to let ourselves down, not just other people.
Right.
Like, we're tired of letting ourselves down.
For sure.
And we need to want to help ourselves first and foremost, and then everyone else kind of benefits from it.
Absolutely.
But when people try to do it because someone told them to, or somebody, their spouse or children or whatever, you're setting yourself up for failure.
Right.
9 times out of 10 if you don't really want the help. And I want to welcome callers to call in, 866-826-1340. Once again, 866-826-1340. Join our conversation and give some feedback and maybe share New Year's resolutions, or if we can help you in your own recovery, or however, 866-826-1340. And it's time for our first break, and we'll be back with Moments of Clarity in just a moment. Please stay tuned.
You're listening to Moments of Clarity with Tiffany Werner. We welcome your input at 866-826-1340. Tiffany will be right back after this.
This is the Tan Talk Radio Network.
Hi, this is Tiffany Werner, your host of Moments of Clarity. Living with a mental health disorder is not easy. If you or someone you know are struggling with this, Please know it's so important to seek treatment, and I'm here to help. Please visit the website at momentsofclarity